So fingers crossed, we are live. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to AC Entertainment Technologies, live from the Leeds office with myself, Stuart Burdett, head of video here at AC Entertainment, and Tom Etra. Your title, Tom.
My
what
title?
is it today?
Well, you didn't warn me about that. It's the first question. The first question. That's not the first question. Technical sales manager at Green Hippo. Absolutely.
So this is hopefully our first of many Q&A sessions with our key and exclusive brands. First of those being Green Hippo. So feel free to ask questions. Got any things you want to know from us from either side? Then just fire away, really. So I thought we'd probably get the ball rolling between us as people come on. We've got James in the room who's going to assist with firing questions over. He's the man with the keys on the YouTube side. So I guess I've been here now. It's actually coming up this weekend to my work anniversary here at AC, 11 years. Before that, I was out on the road opping Green Hippos, and I remember when I first joined and done an open day up north, armed with the Green Hippo. Stu, you've been opping this. Now you've got to sell it. Now you've got to represent it in the UK. But what about you, Tom? What was your story? Where did it begin?
When did it begin? So when I was at university, I went to university, and we had a version 2 system at university.
Version 2.
Version 2, exactly.
What colour doors does that mean? Red?
I think it was a Blue Door Express.
Blue Door Express.
Exactly, yeah. Blue Door Express, yeah, one of those. So, and it sat in the corner gathering dust, and I thought, right, I'll give this a go. And
wait, I'm trying to think though. Blue Door Express, was that? I had grey door.
That was a stage. No, you had gold doors. Gold was stage, and red was a HD. Yeah.
Was it?
So stage was 725, 76, and HD was amazing. It was HD.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So gathering dust, thought I'd give it a go, and then.
Do you think that still exists down
there? The what?
The old stage. The Express.
The Express. Does it still exist somewhere in the world?
Down at the university, you said you had it.
No, probably not. What was it? It was probably like I don't even think it was Windows XP. It was probably before that. But yeah, I don't think it exists still there. I think it'd have been traded in for something else by now. I'm pretty sure some people in the world have some in their museums. So I studied at university, and then at the time, Green Hippo was a team of 4 or 5. And they were looking for tech support. So after leaving uni, I thought, well, this looks interesting. This might be the future.
Yep.
And then and chucked my hat into the kind of tech support ring. And
what were you studying at uni?
Technical theatre. So technical theatre. So I went to a drama school that did it in 2 years. Mountview did it in 2 years because I wanted to learn a bit of each. So I did a bit of construction, a bit of lighting, a bit of sound.
Yeah.
What else was in there? There was other stuff thrown in there as well. And the second year you got to specialise. So second year I did lighting as a major, and then sound as a minor. Yeah. So and actually that Mountviews office was opposite Green Hippo's old office. So I ended up going to the same place in London for probably 16 years of my life, which was interesting.
Down Wood Green.
Yeah, lovely Wood Green. Yeah. If anyone's ever been there, it's one that you should always go to. Definitely, if you come to London.
Yeah. Well, I guess, for me, way before all of this, I'd done a university degree at Derby, sound, light and live event technology. And I guess then I'd probably say that video wasn't, the big portion of maybe what it is today. That technology, there was a lot of projection, I guess, done. But not
very new, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And what was it like? I guess was video at all an element there at Mountview?
It was definitely very new. I think there was only 2 or 3 in the market. Catalyst was there, probably the first. You had another one as well, a UK kind of brand, and then there was Hypnotizer. And we'll get onto stories later. But the interesting point is that three directors, one of them came in and said, can it be controlled over DMX? And one of the directors said, that's a silly idea. And the other one said, well, let's give it a go. Yeah. Let's see what we can do. Yeah. Let's see if it works. And that's kind of what kind of.
So how many different brains were there that created Green Hippo?
So there was Sean and James. So Sean Westgate, James Heron, and they were primarily doing trade show stands. So
Okay.
they were doing trade show stands. One of their big ones was Sony PlayStation. I think they had about 40 CRT monitors on their Sony PlayStation stand, all played back off of maybe Betamax or VHS. And at that point, I think they thought there must be an easy way of doing this.
Yeah.
There must be a better way of doing this.
Right.
So out of a trade show need came I think an MPEG-2 card-based system, and then after that, I believe they looked around for software and found a VJ software out of Switzerland.
Yeah.
And at that point, a guy called Joshua became the third director of the company, for investor in the company, and then the fourth was Nigel. Nigel's got a big base in technical side, theatre side. Came from that background, sold a lot of lighting and hazers in his day, and that's Nigel came to him and said, "Can this be controlled over DMX?" And I think that's kind of James said, "Well, that's a silly idea," and Sean said, "Well, let's see if we can program something."
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it was born. Definitely,
Yeah.
that was kind of the if the decision would have been made the other way, it wouldn't have been here today, kind of thing. So,
but I guess when you talk about it like that with such a large trade show stand like Sony with all those screens, that feels like that should be quite a rigid playback. Whereas Green Hippo is very much real time. Stuff happens now.
yeah.
That must have been a conversation really early to say that.
Yeah, I think
real time.
I think, as always, products follow the consumer demands, and at the time, the only people that could afford video on a larger scale were nightclubs.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of liquid or luminar leisure nightclubs right at the beginning, probably even before I joined. It was tailing off as I joined, probably, and they were demanding real-time video.
Yeah.
And again, it was 725, 7.6. It was very small. And I remember going back to, I can't remember where we went to, me and Nigel were on a business trip somewhere, and we went to Luminar Leisure, and they had lots of CRT screens around, and the guy thought it was royalty having Nigel Sadler in the building, and ended up, I think he gave us about 100 drinks tokens between the two of us. So
Really?
so he thought it was royalty. But yeah, it came from that. I think that the real-time video side kind of was spurned from a demand in the market from nightclubs, definitely.
Yeah. So I guess that tool set then was very small. There's several media server brands nowadays, all got different tweaks. But I mean, back then it was a much smaller market, I guess.
Yeah, a lot smaller market, and I would say that the price to entry was very high. So
Very high.
only a few people could afford it. And back in those days as well, they grabbed it was kind of like a shop teller kind of thing, and they had, I think it was about 20 buttons on there. And as you would do like a Stream Deck at the moment, it had 20 buttons and you could trigger different presets. So we kind of come full circle from the original, even V1s, right back round to what we're trying to do now with the Stream Deck. So, which is a nice thing. And then, just to give you a bit of extra there, when I joined, they just signed a contract with, again with Cirque du Soleil to do the Beatles show, the Love show in Vegas.
Wow. Yep.
So coming from nightclubs, and we started to do a few We Will Rock You shows. Again, CT I think came to us, and Scott Burgess came to us, said we've got again a under HD screen, or it might have been a HD LED screen. Can you do something for playback? Absolutely, that was demand there from a customer. We helped out there, and that became kind of the de facto media server in all the We Will Rock Yous. And then the big break, absolutely, the massive show we did was Love for the Beatles, and that kind of propelled Green Hippo to the next level.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of investment I think they needed at that time.
Game changer.
To employ myself as tech support, and then also to push the business on to new heights.
So how big was that team back then? Based in Wood Green. I mean, the Green Hippo now as a brand, maybe 20 years, I want to say.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it's probably about that. Yeah, 20 years. So back then, we actually were in Tottenham then, in one one small office in Tottenham, and it was the three directors, Kitty, who was office manager, and then Peter Kaufman, who's probably the most cleverest guy I've ever met, was our programmer. So yeah, that was kind of it.
Wow.
In one office. A very dynamic office, definitely.
Yeah.
Easy to do different things every day. Easy to refocus on different things, definitely.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting time. Every day was a new challenge.
That must have grown really quick from that point, I guess.
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah, so we moved from Tottenham Hale to Wood Green, and I think the office space probably doubled in size. And the great thing in Wood Green was that they had this breeze block partition. So we got one office, which was the end office, and then we bought the same. We hired the same space again and again and again. So I think in the space of maybe 4 or 5 years, we doubled in size, and then we times four'd in size as well. So it was perfect space to be able to grow a company in that space. So.
Yeah. And of course, with so many servers, certainly in the field today, I guess support then, when you're in that role, must have been easier then, I guess. But compared to now, it must be a lot bigger team, global team. When did it become so global, I guess?
Yeah,
that bit of growth.
Yeah, I think the support side definitely. When we opened the office in LA, when we opened that office, there was a need for support over there. We had back then we had a support suite, which we still have now, which is great. So anyone that emails in at support@green-hippo.com, there are 10 plus people worldwide constantly monitoring those emails, so they can see what's coming in and quickly answer those. So that's great actually to have that transatlantic support, if you like. So when one switches off, another one switches on, bits like that backwards and forwards. So when I joined the company, it was just me. It was interesting. As I said, every day was different. Every day was a different phone call, and problem solving was something I wasn't used to coming out of university, but something I got on board with very quickly.
Yeah.
And trying to understand on the phone as well. People in a show situation, if something goes wrong, and I do too. I panic. You panic, don't you? So a lot of people would have been in a panic situation when they called up, which is an interesting conversation sometimes.
And I think that's a blessing, isn't it, in the newer servers now? Having those, restore points. Let's be honest too. There are, you had to react then to problems. So there was, version releases specific to people's, urgent, needs. But that a lot of that is cleaned up now.
Yep.
That whole process of, and who funnels that? Who polices that?
So for product development, we do a product steering group. So there are different people from different departments on that product steering group that decide on new features, customer features, and that's all taken from feedback, really driving that product forward. And you're absolutely right. From version 1 or version 2 to where we are now, each version is a massive jump in capabilities. And even from version 3, where our output settings weren't the best, they spent a lot of time on those output settings in version 4. So they're very user friendly and very stable now. But we also our bug tracking's got better. The kind of showstopper bugs and how we fix those, how we deal with those. Whereas the bugs that are in the system we know about, known bugs if you like, that we publicise. So it's definitely an ongoing battle internally for what you fix, who you fix, and what comes first. So
and I guess so. What's it like behind the scenes? So you went from support role, and then where have you been now?
So support. I joined special projects.
Projects.
Which was really interesting. So we did a lot of the larger shows, and we used to call ourselves firefighters because it was definitely like that. You came in every day, and there was a new challenge. I wouldn't say a problem, but a challenge. Customers wanted to do something different. How do we do this? So stuff like the Super Bowl, Eurovision, the Oscars, and some of the other larger West End shows we did. Some of the larger tours we did. How do we fix problems? And again, dynamically trying to solve those problems for customers as quick as we could.
Yeah,
Definitely. So.
yeah. And it must be, it's a rewarding job. Or it must be an exciting job, when these different, because it's a Swiss Army knife of tools that's grown over the years. Everyone has a different way of implementing those tools, a different way of doing it. So it must be quite, it's an interesting role, isn't it? And an interesting product because it can be applied in so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and those what you would call vertical markets, if you like, and where we sit in those vertical markets, and also what features people demand in those vertical markets is completely different, definitely. So again, trying to prioritise those features we want to put in the next revision of software that sometimes take, for instance, timeline. We brought out timeline a couple of versions ago, which was great. It's an amazing timeline, but the television guys who mainly use DMX didn't need the timeline. So it's trying to prioritise features for the masses, if you like, for the most people in the market, and trying to keep other people happy in the meantime as well. So
and I guess so from the projects role, then on to
so special projects with Nigel, and then into sales. So that would have been probably 10 years ago I moved into sales. And
how many years is that now then with Green Hippo?
17, yeah. So 17 years at Green Hippo, yeah. So moved into sales, and again a very a new challenge coming from support, trying to learn that into special projects, and then into trying to sell a product. It's definitely an interesting challenge. I had all the knowledge, I knew how the product worked, and again, different ways of selling. We go through distribution in a lot of territories, but some territories we go direct, so dealing with different customers' needs, and also features. What kind of customer we're talking to, what features do they want to use, that kind of stuff. So,
do you think you could still support a V3 system? I think there's certain. I think I'm losing a little bit now, but up until recently, I could have still remembered.
I think you're probably better at it than I am. Yeah, I could try. I could definitely try, but I would say well.
You'd still give it a good go.
I'd give it a go, but I would still.
There's windows all open.
Ned hates me because I keep on just pointing at Ned. Ned will know. Yeah, our head of support will know. Just speak to Ned. He probably won't know, but just speak to Ned. Ned will help you. And someone in the company will know. So.
I think in version 3, I think it'd probably be Uberpan is the one that I probably couldn't talk people through on the phone. I'd have to have a system out in front of me.
I think when we released it, I couldn't talk people through on the phone.
Exactly.
So you're lucky if you get there at the moment.
Yeah, so. I think I'm kind of glad that Uberpan. Yeah, But I mean, great at the time. I mean, brilliant.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I mean, again, Uberpan, when they first released Uberpan, and we had 4 systems in the office, you could grab a layer and move it off of one system onto the other across the network, and it went round.
Yeah.
That was jaw dropping, and weirdly enough, I remember looking at it through the windows in our meeting room when Sean was playing with it, thinking, "Wow, this is going to be interesting."
Really cool.
Exactly, yeah. Network-based synchronization in real time was amazing. Yeah, and it took us at that point. We only had a few programmers, so it took us a while to deliver. But again, I remember going to LDI one year and showing Uberpan across 10 screens. Off 2 or 3 systems, and we had crowds of people around the stand looking at it. It was amazing. It was the future at that time. So.
Yeah. And I was trying to think, how does that look in today's world? But I guess with the implementation of shape and everything else, that's it, isn't it? That 3D environment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. You see some customers and you walk them through shape and show them that bit, and you think, well, that I would have thought that'd impress them, but no. And then you show them blur on a layer, and they're blown away. So sometimes you think the most basic features you show every day is the ones that really.
I think you're right. I think people forget. The content library and the massive effects engine. What was there? Something like 200 effects.
That's it. Yeah, there's about 250 stock content as standard, and then about 200 effects. And again, those effects can be programmed internally. So if a customer has an effect they need, they send us an idea and we can program those and send it back to them. So there are a lot of effects in there that have got people's names on them. Johan West has got one, Neil Tranell has one, Sven's Digits.
Exactly.
There's a few in there with people's names on them because they've requested them, and we've added them to the system. So.
And if there is something that would help someone in if they wanted their effect created, how do they go about that?
Yeah, I would say
That suggestion inbox thing.
effects and features is what drives us, and what drives the company, what drives the product. So there is features at green-hippo.com, and also Zep is our product manager, and he's more than happy to receive emails at zep@green-hippo.com on any feature requests to go through to the product steering group. Definitely,
Cool.
Cool.
So I don't know how we're doing on the questions front, but I've still got more, things I'd like to ask. And I guess one of those is when we talk about features. What do you think there was a particular feature that was like, if you hadn't have made that move, if you hadn't have implemented that, the product wouldn't be where it is, or is that?
I don't think so. Well,
No.
I'm trying to think. There's a few different features definitely we put in, and you mentioned Uberpan there, which I totally forgot about, and totally forgot the first time I saw that. When we first added timeline as well was kind of news definitely, and opened our world up to video guys. Video mapper as well is something so simple and easy.
So simple.
Yeah, to be able to reconfigure LED tiles to fit your outputs rather than have a static 4x3 60x9 screen. The first time we used that was in special projects, and we did it on the Super Bowl, the Who half-time show, and they had a circular dish with barcode mice strips, and they run video around it, and it didn't matter where the mice strip was, the video looked perfect.
Yeah, of course.
It looked like a sun. It looked like a sun looking down, and that was kind of revolutionary. Definitely, it was something so simple, but
I guess
so
when
clever,
the LED processing manufacturers maybe weren't up to speed with tiles, rotating tiles, resizing, because of course with Video Mapper you can use different pixel pitches and make that overall canvas. That was a massive game changer. Really. It made it
And also I would say putting in there probably Shape. So Shape was born maybe 12, 14 years ago, where we wanted to project on castles at theme parks around the world. So we invented at that time it was called it was before Ape, so it became Ape, but it was before that anyway.
I remember Ape well, on
exactly.
our Plaza stand.
Yeah. So and again that was revolutionary, and at that time it was still controlled over a lighting console. So we had an MA that was controlling a zoom of a projector left and right. And that, I think it took about 2 months to align these 12 projectors on the castle. And then from there we said, right, well this needs to be quicker. So we went down the route of point and click. So you grab a piece of, you click on a piece of the output in a 3D model, and you click on the same point on the output on the real world, and that XYZ position in the model corresponds to an X and Y position on the output. And those 12 projectors now takes us maybe 2 hours to align. So again, trying to cut down that time. Bringing in visualizer was great as well, because you could see your output then, and you could pre-program without having to be on site or be in the venue. Mainly time saving as well, so trying to save people time and also money as well. So having rather than taking a month to taking a few hours or overnight, and the visualizer, being able to pre-program, it's all those kind of user-friendly features that come in. So
I guess, and as well being able to, I can't think back to when being able to pre-program offline came in. I guess that came in version 4, didn't it?
Yeah, beginner version 4, absolutely. Yeah. And I think beginner version 4 we probably didn't have play either, so that came probably a couple of versions after, maybe a year after. So again, trying to get our product out into the world so people can easily access it. So downloading play off the website for free, has a watermarked output, but you can pre-program a show on it. You can learn on it. You can develop new timelines and just export those and drop it on a show when you arrive on site or on your system.
So I'm surprised no one's jumped online and asked already, but will there ever be a dongle-based version of Green Hippotizer?
Oh, people ask it every day, And
where's that on the list?
For some markets, people are screaming out for it. For India, it's very hard to ship hardware in without getting it kind of affiliated by the Indian government. So it's very hard for us to get product into India.
Don't worry about that. I'm sure they'll cope with just a download somewhere. That's fine, and an electric license key.
People are screaming out for that, but it is our name at the end of the day. So these larger shows we do, the playback. If the playback fails, that's our name. That's the Green Hippo name, the Hippotizer name that's failed there. So, and we can't fail on the larger shows we do. So having having spent 12 months researching the hardware, developing the hardware, testing different pieces of hardware together to make sure that that is the most stablest hardware platform we can deliver. Is kind of one of our great USPs. So.
Yeah, and I know the incarnations of the versions of Portimus that came through, fantastic, but it was just, can only imagine from a manufacturer's point of view, very difficult because the laptop specs just move so quickly.
Yeah, Portimus was a great idea, and it still is a great idea. The last time we tried to do Portimus, we had a Dell laptop we were happy with. Dell said, okay, you can have it for the next 3 years, 36 months. We said, okay, well that's a good lifetime of a product. We can sell a few of those. So we spent 8 months testing on the Dell, create an image, a Windows image for that Dell, made sure that it all worked well, it was all stable. And I think within 4 months, Dell discontinued the laptop. So we haven't gone back since, unfortunately. But yeah, that was a great idea because you could buy that Dell laptop anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
We'd provide the image for it. You'd load the image on, and then you had a hypnotizer anywhere in the world. And there's still some Portimuses that pop up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I do hear stories of them still being used on occasional gigs.
Yeah.
So.
I still know people that run their Portimuses as well.
I think if Phil White's watching, I think he's one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Still there.
Exactly.
But I think with certainly Nevis now, in such a small form factor, single 4K output, the fact that it's all there. If you wanted capture, you could use NDI. But I mean, that was actually for us. That was probably our biggest seller last year. Was the Nevis in units, and customers putting them in small racks. You can have a backup and main, or you might just go on an aeroplane with a Peli and you could put a camera in there and a MIF4 or whatever you needed to do and link it to your console when you got on site. I think
absolutely. I travel all around with a Nevis in a Peli case that's smaller than a shoebox, and it really works for me to be able to get that out and demo it to any customer without having to ship around a 4U, or I think 25 kilogram piece of equipment. So
we definitely noticed that. Customers would buy, Boreals, for the larger events where they need more outputs, but then having that Nevis for the smaller stuff just works perfectly.
Yeah, Flyaway is definitely a lot of people using that. People turn up for shows and they have a plane ride in the evening and they want to be able to get on that plane, go to the next venue and then bring it back out again. So, and the Nevis, you can fit 2 in a 1U rack as well, so people are obviously touring with that 1U racker. So, that's great.
Cool. So I guess looking back then, so version 3 was around for how long? Was that like 7 years?
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was. We definitely went from the way that the product developed very quickly. I think we went from my point of view, version 3 I'd just joined, so I was looking after some version 2s. That was around for 7 years, and then we went to version 4, obviously 4 after that. So, but the jump from version 2 to version 3, and then obviously the jump from version 3 to version 4 was massive, definitely.
Yeah,
big jump in software and what we could deliver, but also on hardware as well. A massive jump on hardware. So.
Yeah. So, again, a question that gets asked a lot now is version 5. Is there such thing as a version 5? Is it?
Yeah.
What's the roadmap? What does it look like?
So version 5, there's no talk internally of version 5, only because we've set up kind of an ethos now of this hardware replacement software assurance, so that we can roll the software assurance, and any new hardware or software that comes out will roll onto the new hardware. So we don't look at the version 5s, if you like, going forward. We look at new versions of version 4. I don't know if there will ever be a big enough leap to jump to version 5, to be honest. It feels like there's inclinations of version 4, new hardware as well, because we're rolling that hardware every 3 to 4 years. You get, on some of the products, about 100% increase in performance. So it's a huge jump every time that new hardware comes out. And that's been kind of tapered a little bit during the pandemic, getting hold of hardware internally, and testing new hardware and bits like that. We've got a hardware platform now we're happy with. We can deliver on that hardware platform. So I think that 3 to 4 year kind of timescale is slipping slightly, but as long as we can deliver products,
Yeah.
that's what we're going to try and focus on.
So I guess for those who aren't familiar, though, you spoke there of hardware replacement, software assurance. What is that?
So between what we had is when we went from version 3 to version 4 overnight, a lot of people that had previously bought version 3s in maybe the last year or 18 months, all of a sudden all of the specifications out there was on version 4. And that as it would do me, as if I was a customer, left a bad taste in a lot of version 3 customers. So what we went through that then was a process of, okay, how do we make that transition easier? If we release new hardware, how do we make that transition easier? So now what we've come up with is what we call hardware replacement. So for roughly a third of the cost of new hardware, you can jump from the hardware you've got now to the new hardware platform.
Yeah.
And I think in the life of version 4 at the moment, we've had 3 hardware revisions, 3 hardware jumps. And again, as most media servers, we're pushed by the gaming industry, or the gaming industry develops quicker. So those jumps are huge because of that industry. So and then software assurance. So software assurance, what we found is that what we've done is that with every new system purchased, there is 3 years of software assurance. And after that, if you need the new software updates every 9 months, there is a chargeable cost goes towards that. So that's kind of how we tried to break it up for long-term users. So if we do jump to the new hardware and that gets put on specifications, there's not a massive leap for rental companies to jump onto that new hardware.
Yeah. It depends on the feature that you use maybe. So we are at 4.8 at the moment. 4.9.
Yeah, so the idea of our software is that every 9 months we release a new version. It took us probably 10 months to release 4.8, which we're on now. So 4.9 we envisage being released maybe October, November time. And again, what we try and do is we don't want to release software that will break people's systems, break people's shows. So we're always very cautious. If there's a show-stopping bug in there, okay, let's clear that off. We don't want to release software before it's ready. So
I see that a lot. Certainly, when you talked there earlier about people having the software on their own, almost homebrew PC, whatever. That could be dangerous on potentially big shows. Likewise, you want to make sure that the new software runs on specific versions of hardware. It's just managing that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I hear a lot of people that use competitors' software only that come to us to say, look, it's failed on this show, we need something that's more reliable. So internally there's always this conversation about software only, and then you hear that story from a customer and you think, okay, that kind of indicates the software hardware combination, the testing for 8 to 12 months, the making sure that we know that the Hippetizer name is reliable for the larger shows we do, definitely.
So on those, just talking about projects, there must be times, when you see those large shows, do you watch them? Would you watch them? Or you hear about it tomorrow when you go back in the office?
I do watch them. I remember James Herron once visiting X Factor with Bill Peachman, and he had one system and no backup. And I think at that point he didn't watch the show. Yeah, so James wouldn't watch the show until they had a backup.
Yeah.
But I'll watch them, and weirdly enough, we sat down with my 8-year-old son on Saturday night, and I was flicking between The Wheel, which is a Hippetizer show on BBC One, then we flicked to Saturday Night Takeaway, which is a Hippetizer show, and it's you definitely forget that these are the shows you run, these are the shows you do.
Well, hopefully off the back of this conversation you won't now, you'll be thinking about it.
No, they all have backups now. They're kind of that was a long time ago. That was maybe 10 years ago that we had that thought. So
and I guess the evolution of the product, you must have, I mean, how involved are Green Hippo in these big projects, like a Eurovision or what, there must be some big requests come through.
On the larger shows, you always have to be involved. Nigel Sadler, our special producer director, he's kind of a guru with the software, so he can fix stuff on site if needs be, but also knows how these shows run. We all knows how these shows run, and how these problems need to be fixed. And to give you an idea, the first Eurovision we did was probably a year after I joined the company, 2007, which was first year of version 3.
Yeah.
Johan West took a massive leap on Hypnotizer to put it on the show, and we're always very grateful and humbled at that leap. But you'd have systems where you'd reboot the system and some of the thumbnails would disappear. And that, again, people at Sean Westgate was on site trying to fix that problem, and then they'd say, okay, so why is the contrast different? And we try and fix that problem. So you always have bugs, and I tried to find out the other day, but I think in every 1,000 lines of code there is about 60 bugs or something like that. So if you've got, say, Hypnotizer's got 6 million lines of code.
Gosh, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And some of those, the show-stopping ones definitely we quash, but some of those bugs, you get to the point where it's going to take you longer to fix those bugs than it is to do anything else. So it's kind of a known bug, you know it's in there, you know the workaround.
It's the workaround,
and all software has that as well. It's all software, all media servers, but you just try and negate the risk as much as possible. So
wow. So yeah, I mean, if people have those projects again, you know, who do they? Is there someone that, you know? I guess they speak to yourself. You know, would they call the office? You know, how do I apply as media server? I guess is the question. I know people can come to me, but globally, you know, I guess you've got your different offices and stuff. But how do they reach out to Green Hippo? Who do they?
So I would say we have. You just said to yourself, we've got distributors worldwide, which we definitely rely on. But absolutely emails direct to myself, direct to Nigel or to Zep. We're there to help with the project, hold people's hands. I always say that we're constantly internally fixing the system, fixing the bugs, making sure it works. But actually, when someone has a new idea, that's when the product's driven forward.
Yeah.
That's when the programmers' brains are tested. That's when they start developing, which is what they really want to do.
Yeah.
So we always champion anyone that comes in with a new idea or has a new feature they want to add, and help that. And again, the larger projects we do, we're always developing for the system. And a lot of features you see in the system have come from those larger requests as well. So.
So I guess in more recent years, you know, Green Hippo was acquired in 2018 by Spitfire Group.
Yep.
So for those who don't know, you know, who is Spitfire and what?
Yeah, so Spitfire Group is actually a holding company for companies below, and we don't very often mention Spitfire Group internally. It's just an umbrella company, if you like. The main company is TV1, and they're kind of they are the switcher scalers. They do a lot in medical, a lot in installs, bits like that. We have Magenta Research, which is the KVM over IP and also the signal extenders. And then as you mentioned, 2018, we became part of that what we call a turnkey solution. So you have the switcher scaling, the distribution, and then we plug into the TV1 side to be able to deliver content. And yeah, well, as every acquisition, I think you go through, you may go through pain, but as I said to everyone, the Spitfire Group and the directors of TV1 tread very carefully with Green Hippo. And to give you an idea, I think November last year I started getting paid by TV1 rather than Green Hippo. So trying to keep all those employees, all that knowledge internally at Green Hippo happy going forward, developing the product was really key, and I think they kind of nailed it, definitely.
Yeah, and like you say, that you've you know, within those three brands, TV1, Magenta Research and yourselves, you know, there's a great opportunity to collaborate, and you know, you've got all that great knowledge. So does that, what's the, you know, do those R&D teams speak? Are they, you know, is that one office? Is it?
Yeah, again, talking about how they treated, how the TV1 directors were good at bringing that together. the R&D teams talk, and just up until recently they became one team. So we're just bringing our support teams together, and the R&D teams just coming together. And absolutely, that knowledge base of switcher scaling in the TV1 side and FPGA side, and our knowledge in developing programming is massive coming together, definitely. And the future's going to be interesting with what we come up with, or what they come up with. So.
So do you think, I mean, I'm just going to fuel the fire probably, but do you think we'd ever see a product that was like I'd love to see it, a Choreo Master Hippo, that sort of, will it go that far?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I don't,
should I put it onto features?
There's no conversation internally about that. We'll never say never.
Yeah.
I think the great thing is that the Green Hippo have a great reputation in live events, and TV1 have a great reputation in the install side.
Yeah.
And those customers definitely crossing over now. So you'll see a lot more TV1 in live events and a lot more Hippo in installs.
Yeah, and there's a lot of creative people out there, isn't there? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's working. It's working great between the two companies, and selling into different vertical markets, and also expanding our reach in those vertical markets, definitely.
So how does it work? So those teams of people now within the Spitfire group, within the 3 different brands, where are they, the geography in the world? Do you meet regularly? Do they bang heads? Who leads it forward?
Yeah, so the Green Hippo side, we're based in Camden, so development's based there, products based there, and support is based in Camden. We also have an office in Los Angeles. TV1's R&D and logistics is based in Margate in Kent, and then their development side, or their product development side, is in Maidenhead, which is just outside London. So the interesting part there is that the whole development side is based in the UK, very locally, which is nice. The corporate side is based in Cincinnati in America, because at some point TV1 was sold to America and then it was bought back and bits like that. So our development and software development, hardware development is all based in and around London, which is a great.
That's great. Yeah, and I guess thinking about that too, as a manufacturer, coming out this side of COVID, we see it a lot from a distribution level, where it's been very hard to supply kit. I mean, from a manufacturing point of view, how hard has that been for you?
I only see the outside, really.
Yeah.
It must be really painful for the product guys and for the product managers. I'd love to say it's all been rosy from the outside, but different things, different weeks, really. Some weeks we went for a stage where computer hardware, motherboards, graphics cards, hard drives, not just for COVID, I think they had some kind of flood in Taiwan and they couldn't produce hard drives, but that was worldwide as well. Yeah. And the price goes through the roof overnight for that. Yeah. You find the cryptocurrency really hit graphics cards because everyone started to buy them to mine crypto, so you couldn't get hold of them. Yeah. Now, sometimes we find the metalwork, we can't get hold of metalwork, we can't get hold of fans. So, again, I only see the outside, I'm only in the periphery, I only hear when we can't deliver. But it must be a day-to-day nightmare for the guys inside trying to pull that together. And I think they've got it nailed now, but I think post-COVID it was the Wild West, definitely. So,
and I think you've been, as well. It's very hard to not pass on those. We've obviously seen increasing costs with regard to chips, with regard to raw materials, metal and all that. But I think we've only seen one change from yourself since COVID, so that's great too. That's not felt by the customer.
Yeah, exactly. The directors have been very keen on trying to swallow as much of the cost as they can to keep the price as competitive, and also the customers are at some point your friends as well. So you want to keep them in business, them working. You don't want to change the price every 6 months, but also the price they get for rental might not change. So you want to deliver the same product, and you don't want them to have to fork out more and more and more for the product. So yeah, they've been very good at trying to respect the market and trying to help as much as they can, especially post-COVID and where we are now with the world. everyone needs to help everyone.
Yeah. So yeah, great that you're UK based. It's quick to turn around still, which is fantastic. We keep Nemesis on the shelf. Obviously demo equipment here. And I guess also coming out of this side of the pandemic, we're starting, thanks to these fantastic facilities, to get our training rooms back online and start doing more face-to-face things like that. Obviously, demonstrations and testing has obviously happened on the site, but Susie created, didn't she, the training portal?
Yeah, so online training, during COVID they created that, so the whole 3-day course is available online, and Susie actually is just starting up in-office training, in-person training next month in April in our office in Camden, again delivering the 2 days basic on Hippotizer and then the 1 day shape or 1 day advanced, if you like, on top of that if needed. So yeah, we're trying to get people back into the office, bums on seats, people getting back out and seeing us. So.
Yeah. And I guess, the last time that we met was at ISE, and great to be doing trade shows again, and seeing, real people again.
Exactly.
Doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How was that show for you?
Yeah, really good. Really, really good. We got a great footfall on the stand, great products to show. The feedback was amazing as well from a lot of the customers that came over. We found a lot of customers making a beeline for our stand as well, which is nice to see, coming into the venue, into ISE, and coming to us straight away, which was great. We got a lot of ongoing projects, a lot of new projects as well. So it was a really, really good, really beneficial show for us.
So next show, what shows do you have on the calendar for this year?
ProLight and Sound, yeah. So
ProLight
ProLight and Sound is middle to end of April. In Frankfurt. So we did that with our distributor in Germany. And then I think we've got a couple of American shows.
So we've got Plaza Focus coming
Focus
up
in May. Exactly, in Leeds. Yeah, that's always a good one. So that's a great one. So we've got a few coming up, and then we're going to try and do some more open days again, trying to get people back into the office, back to see the products and stuff like that. So
great. I thought I'd ask James if we've been chatting crikey for nearly 50 minutes. We've probably lost all of our viewers, but is there any questions at all come in? No questions at all? Wow. This is easy for you and I, isn't it? It's really easy. So I guess another question to ask maybe, since that Spitfire acquisition, a lot has changed. Are there any big changes? I guess a question though is, over the years, have there been any significant, we said about features earlier, but if there wasn't one big change that you made, would it be where it is today? Or what would that?
Well, I mentioned the kind of, can we control it over DMX, which is always a good story. That was kind of definitely a make or break right then, and if it wouldn't have been tried, we wouldn't have been here today. Personnel come and go. I think that's kind of massive changes, especially if they're the kind of foundations of the company. So this year, Sean Westgate, one of the founders, technical director, left us to do something new.
Yep.
He said that he wanted to do one more thing in his life, a new challenge. Exactly, yeah, absolutely. And then Ryan also left as well the last year. So you get that kind of personnel change, but what I find in those situations is that at the time they're a big loss, but then a month later that person's filled that gap, that person's taken on that responsibility. Yeah. So it's never as big as you think it would be, absolutely. Yeah. So but changes in the product, I mean, the hardware changes I mentioned earlier, the hardware comes on leaps and bounds, definitely. Yeah. Utilising the new graphics cards is always a massive game changer. Added in shape in there as well, and visualizer, massive game changers for us as well. And back in even version 2 days, we added 3D effects into our effects engine, and you put them on a trade show, and that would be a wow. That would be okay. Yeah. I remember one time back at a trade show, me and Nigel in Special Projects, we had 4 infrared LEDs around a picture frame, and a projector pointing at it with a camera, and as we moved the picture frame around, the picture was kept on there and kept in the right place.
Yeah.
And in theory, you could say that was what we've got now, Stipe and
Gosh,
Moses and stuff like that. Back in the day,
yeah.
if me and Nigel would have had the foresight, which we obviously didn't, to carry on developing it, we could have moved it into kind of camera tracking and stuff like that. But it was an interesting development cycle, yeah. So, but that things that catch people's eyes is great for a trade show like that. So you move stuff around, people stop and look, definitely.
I was trying to think, what was the mapping back in version 3 where you could, was it put 4 points on, correct?
Yeah, region mapper.
Region mapper.
Yeah, region mapper. Yeah. We need to do a video about that because region mapper is in shape.
Yeah.
There is a region mapper in shape.
Is there?
Yeah.
I feel terrible.
It's too hidden, really. We should publicise that more. But yeah, it does the same thing as region mapper does. Yeah.
Wow.
So, again, that was a game changer. That was an easy way to do 3D mapping. Really, you could position bits of video in different places. We had the blocks, didn't we? The kind of pyramid of blocks.
Yeah.
And I think for a year I took that around the world. I ended up doing that in Dubai, in South Africa, I think we did it in Vegas as well. The same blocks went around, polystyrene blocks went around the world. So, so again, just an eye catcher. That's all you need, and just to.
Yeah, I mean, to think how some of the components have, moved on with, I was thinking back to Pixel Mapper. Pixel Mapper, back in V3, you used to be able to, choose your fixture from a drop-down list because there was only a few manufacturers and a few fixtures.
Yeah.
But now it's, you have to create it, understandably, because there's just so many different types. All of the components have, really grown up. But I mean, just moving with the current times.
Yeah, we did a show the other day with 500 to 1,000 universes of Pixel Mapper, and I remember back in the day that would have been unheard of.
Gosh,
you'd have been laughed out the room if you'd have said that's how we need to do. But now that's kind of the standard, isn't it? You get that many universes of pixels they want to run video over, and then all of a sudden it's the media server you need to plug in. So, and you see buildings around the world, and it's getting more prominent now with LEDs covering those buildings, and having a pixel mapper to run video across those buildings is just it's again an unsung feature of Hypnotizer. Definitely is the pixel mapper.
And certainly on a few projects I've seen things like that watch folder's brilliant. When we have these unfortunate disasters in the world, where we come together and we put, flags across buildings or stuff like that. We're being able to upload that piece of content remotely, and people being able to join. That's great.
Yeah, watch folder. So the ability to have a folder anywhere on the network where you add content to it, and then if in brackets, if you put the banking clip number, that automatically replaces it. So if you've got timelines programmed, that'll automatically replace the timelines. We're trying to get away from someone having to learn Hypnotizer to be able to upload content, so a marketing department can upload it. And they took that one step further in 4.8, and again Nigel put in an API, but also web-based as well. So we can now create a quick web page, trigger timelines from a web page, presets from a web page. So someone that doesn't know media servers, doesn't know Hypnotizer, can now trigger a 1 or 50 system server projection map, and also upload content, change that content. So yeah, for installs, that's again another game changer. So.
Yeah. And I guess having your own codec, jumping to FlexRes was a big move as
Massive,
well.
yeah, and that took a lot of programming time, a lot of years, but it was great foresight from the directors, that if that codec disappeared or we couldn't get hold of that codec, that was the server, that was our business. So I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago we created our own codec, FlexRes, from the ground up. So you've got FlexRes quality, FlexRes performance, and then you've got uncompressed and visually uncompressed in there as well. So they had the foresight for that, and then I think maybe 2 or 3 years later, Apple withdrew HAP support. And then overnight, a lot of the other media servers were scrambling to try and work out what they could do, and we were in a good place with FlexRes, which was you could say that was probably a game-changing moment that you forget, definitely, because if we didn't have FlexRes, would have been the same scramble mode to try and produce a codec. So,
wow, and just thinking back to those MPEG 2 days,
absolutely, absolutely,
tough. Cool. James, you have a question?
Yeah, Colin from Valencia says, I own a cast and a collection of V3. I know the answer should/would always be buy more, but for a freelancer like myself, I worry about backup devices.
Okay. And what was the combination that you had?
Cast and a collection of V3.
So could you use? Which one would back up which?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean the cast. When we first released the cast, you could you could run version 3. That got taken away with the new hardware. So you could, in theory, if you had an older cast, back up a version 3 with an older cast with version 3 software. I think more what he's talking about is budget for offline backups that are not online, probably. Okay. And I think again in the product development they are looking at a way to back up or go inline backup if you like, to be able to switch, and an easy way to back up systems and import shows between systems. So,
yeah. Good question. Yeah, it's always the backup question is always a good one.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
I always get asked, okay, well, which one's main, which one's backup? Is there a big switch to do this? Or,
yeah, and also how do we do it? And that's always a question. How do you back up? How do you do backups? And having a one-to-one backup, how do we do that? And what's the budget for that kind of thing? So
yeah. You said, is there any future possibility for some sort of emergency license for me to use a laptop or high-spec PC to save his skin on site on the day in the case of hardware failing?
There isn't, no. So that would be software only, and there isn't. I mean, there's a lot of people say, well, Play runs on my laptop and it runs really well. Why can't I just unlock the license? But again, it's that trying to preserve the Hippotizer name by preserving the way we use that hardware, the way we control that hardware, and the way we know it plays back and it's stable. So I don't think there is. I know there isn't an emergency backup situation, unfortunately. So.
He says, in short, budget does not reach to just having a collection for a backup machine. I live in fear of the day my cast goes down live. Have used fireware systems instead for backup due to stress.
Yeah, well, I would say if you live in fear, I would do 2 casts. Living in fear is not fun, so I would do 2 casts. In seriousness, the Nevis again. The Nevis, we tried to bring out a server that was sub 5,000. And the Nevis is sub 5,000 in that kind of remit. Hardware software combination and an easy 1U backup solution for any server. And get out of jail free if you like, to be able to switch to something that has the content, has the networking, has our hardware stamp on it. The Nevis is probably the one I would go towards. So.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree as well. Yep. Yeah. Thanks for those questions. Any more, James? Anything else been flying in?
No.
No, all good.
We've hit 4 o'clock as well, and we've still got watchers, it looks like.
Still got people watching?
Yeah, that's still, what is it, my mum, your mum?
Yeah, exactly. James and James' mum.
Exactly, yeah,
exactly.
So
cool. Well, I don't think if there's any more questions today, then we'll wrap it up.
No, what I would say is if anyone else has got more questions, my email address is tom@green-hippo.com, and yours is Stuart.Burdett, which I don't know how to spell.
Burdett.
At
ac-et.com.
There we are, yeah.
So always drop comments below. I do the below because that's what we do, right? We will...
And hit that subscribe button.
Subscribe, which is over there.
Look at us being professional.
I know, exactly. We've done this never. So, appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. See you again soon.
Thank you.